joined forces together, and this meeting has been a good one ever since the beginning. It used to be Joe C's meeting, but when he decided to leave last year, so he turned it over to me. He gave me the first choice, and I gladly accepted because this message has to be carried. No matter who carries it, it has to be carried, and we carry this message through the book. So today, we normally do a topic or something, or we go through the steps. But today, I felt an urgent need to share my experience, strength, and hope. Basically, I'm going to share about what we were like, what happened, and what we are like now. So I'm looking forward to it myself. So when it comes to Alcoholics Anonymous, right, the title page of the big book reads, "The Story of How Many Thousands of Men and Women Have Recovered from Alcoholism." That's an important word. The key word in this is the story. These people are going to present to us their story, how they did it. Wow, and the results that they got afterward. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others recover from alcoholism. Thank God for Alcoholics Anonymous. See, Bill Wilson, he had an urgent yearning to find the means and ways of the recovery. He was an alcoholic of the hopeless variety. So am I. I was an alcoholic of the hopeless variety, right? So just a little bit about my story, what we were like. Basically, I'll be sharing what I was like. Well, I grew up in a great family here in the state of Alabama. Beautiful home, beautiful mom, grandmother. They was very spiritual. They instilled some wonderful spiritual values in me. They even took me to church, Sunday, Wednesdays, whenever. But you know what? I was hearing something that I didn't like. They was talking about this God that was going to burn me and destroy me, right? I had a problem with that after I heard it for so long. When I turned to be 14 years old, I was feeling some type of way. I took my first drink of alcohol, and the effect was so elusive, right? It made me feel so good. It took all my worries and cares away. So by the time I turned to be 16 years old, alcohol was becoming more important in my life. I jumped immediately from a casual drinker or a moderate drinker. Then by the time I turned 17, I found out every time I drank, I had to get drunk. My level was so high, but I just thought I had a high tolerance level, right? I didn't know I was suffering from something inside of my body. But we're going to get to that part very shortly before I move on. But I got introduced to Alcoholics Anonymous in 1983. It was about 21 men. I was in the military. I'd been in the military for 3 years. One of my commanders ordered me to go to Alcoholics Anonymous against my wishes. I said, what do I need to go there for? I went. So I went, right? So when I got to that room that day, my platoon sergeant took me to their room. And so I walked in the room, and I'm like, and I asked him, you sitting beside me? I said, what they going to do here? They're going to help provide me with alcohol when I run low? This would be a great thing. Then I don't have to spend so much money on this stuff, right? But what they was talking about was totally different. I came back to my commander. I said, I'm not going back to that place no more. They can't supply me with no alcohol. So I left. I stayed in the military till 1991, did an 11-year career. But anyway, back to, I left home when I was 16. 17, I was drinking too much. Got married when I was 17. Got my wife there in the other room today. That's a long time. But somewhere in between, there's a big separation, right? It all came from alcohol. So when I thought I was grown, and at the time when I left home, I didn't need no God in my life. I came to the extent to where I played God. I always thought I had control of the situation, right? But this alcohol was controlling me, along with other substances, right? So that became the first most important thing in my life. I didn't want to hear no talk about no God, so I left the church and all the religious beliefs. But years later, I came back into an organized religion, but I had got to the point to where it could not solve my alcohol problem either. So I had big books all over the years, right? Many treatment centers. Oh, I can count at least 12 different treatment centers I had. Many psych wards, probably about 25 different psych wards, drunk tanks, too many to count, too many to remember, hospitals, jails, institutions, baffled by alcoholism, but I didn't think I had a problem. I thought it was normal to go get the drink and to get drunk. It became a normal way of life. But I noticed something had changed. I got to the point to where I couldn't take it, and I could not leave it alone, no matter how great the necessity of the wish was. I was running on my own self-will. So I clobbered my family, right? I had a bad relationship with myself. I put God out the picture. I didn't want no relationship with God. And I was always in conflict with somebody else. You know, it was due to my drinking, right? And the other things I was doing. I had no idea that I was suffering from an illness that only a spiritual experience can conquer. And this debacle went on for 40 years, 40 consecutive years. Even going to all these treatment centers, jails couldn't solve it. No, first thing I do when I get out of jail, I'm going to get me a drink. And then I'm going to start something with somebody because I'm out of my mind. The insane in the mind. I like to call it insane in the membrane. When you can't think straight and all you think about is alcohol, something is a problem. But I couldn't see it. No, I didn't want to believe that I couldn't handle my alcohol. Some people was telling me many years ago, man, you can't control your liquor. I said, yeah, I can because I can outdrink you. And if I pass out, run my car in a tree or something, shoot, I'll get out and go get me another drink. No problem. If I black out, I'll wake up, get me another drink. So I thought I had control the whole darn time, right? But the fact was, I was totally out of control. You know, step one tells us that we were alcoholic and we could not manage our own lives. Well, it was hard for me to manage my life when I became alcoholic because I couldn't control the amount that I was drinking. And there was always got to be where it was consequences, right? I had a period in my life from 2000 to 2012 in and out of jails. Once a month, twice a month, I'm going to jail. Every time I went to jail, I had been drinking. I was totally, they had to put me in a drunk tank and let me sober up before they could even come in there and talk to me because I was a rebellious alcoholic. All the police in my town, they knew me, they knew who I was, they knew where I worked at. Some nights I cussed them out all night long when they got me up in that drunk tank up in the front. I said, y'all ain't had no business bringing me to jail because I had something to drink. I'm blowing threes, .3s and .4s and stuff like that. One of their machines blowed up one night. They had to go send in and get it recalibrated. I had so much liquor in me. But I said, y'all was wrong for bringing me to jail because I'm driving my car. I know how to drive. No, but it evidence showed them but took me to jail every time. Every time the police come to my house, they take me to jail. One time I went to jail in somebody else's house for public intoxication because they had asked me to leave and I couldn't hear what they were saying. Next thing you know, the police knocked on the door. They made me step on the porch off the jail. I went many times. So that was a real dark period in my life. And I couldn't stay out of jail. But you know, I always had a job though, right? I cooked when I got out the military in 1991. I cooked for the next 27 years. I drank on the job every day. Matter of fact, got to the point where the boss would let me drink on my job. Get totally blasted on my job. I could perform. I wasn't what you call a functioning alcoholic. I was an unfunctioning alcoholic, but I didn't realize I was alcoholic at the time. I had no idea. I thought an alcoholic was somebody we seen under the bridge, or somebody staggering down the road, somebody, just looked like they was homeless. I thought those were alcoholics. Not the case. Experience showed me otherwise. When you can't control the amount of something and it takes control over your mind and your body, that is a problem. So I'm a proud father of 2 grown kids. My son is finna be 38 next week. My daughter is 42 years old. And I separated from for a long time, for over 27 years. I was separated from my wife and my family because the alcohol would not let me stay at home. 27 years being in the world, any near-death experience. I done been in car wrecks. I had women trying to cut me, that they have cut on me. I've had them try to stick me in the heart, in my lung, and all over my body. But somebody kept me alive. I shouldn't even be here today. Not the havoc I caused in people's lives due to my alcoholism. Everybody in the world should have hated this fool, because when they seen me coming, they'll normally disperse, or else they knew they was going to have a conflict. But you know, like I say, 42 years in my drinking career total. And it became a blur, and it came all the way to the point to where I couldn't live with this stuff, and I couldn't live without it. That's the only thing I knew. I guess you can call this what we call a chronic alcoholic mind. I live for alcohol. I would die for alcohol. That's how important this stuff was to me. Then when I drank it, I was totally out of control. What I come to find out in Alcoholics Anonymous, I was suffering from an illness. Page 17 in the big book talks about this alcoholism being an illness. So true it is. I'm the type of alcoholic they describe on page 21 in the big book, the real alcoholic. You can call it a chronic alcoholic. I suffer from this chronic alcoholic mind. That's what the Dr. Carl Jung told Roland Hazard. And it's called an obsession of the mind. See, the problem of the alcoholic is sinners in his body rather than in his mind. I mean, sinners in his mind rather than in his body, right? When Bill talks about this obsession, obsession is not a symptom of being a real alcoholic. It's a trait. Only thing we can think about all day and all night is drinking, then another drink and another drink. We come to know this is called the malady of the mind. We normally don't have this malady in the beginning, but it comes after a period of time. See, at a certain point in our lives, we focus on nothing but alcohol. Alcohol came before my bills. Alcohol came before my family. Alcohol came before everything in life. It was hard for me to get out of the bed, so I used to sleep with my whiskey bottle in my bed in order to get up and function and go to work. I sleep with it in my pillow or beside my pillow, so I could just roll over and pour it down my throat. Then I could sit up on the side of the bed. Well, I can get started now. And then when I go out that door to my job or wherever I went, no matter where, I was going to wreak some havoc with somebody. Remember, I said I was always in conflict with something or somebody or someplace or some institution. When I come around, you was going to have a conflict because I was the one causing. I was going to create a conflict. Then I blamed everybody in the world for my drinking. Wow. I couldn't see it. But every time I can reflect back now, when my wife used to upset me, I blame her for making me upset. Out the door I go. Oblivion. Sometimes I used to be gone 2-3 days. Not a sober breath. So actually, out of them 42 years, I didn't draw too many sober breaths. Unless I was where I could not get hold of no alcohol. If I was in jail, or if I was on even training missions in the military, I was going to take my alcohol where I wasn't supposed to take it, and I took it everywhere I went. Could have been kicked out several times because I could not stop drinking. Then I was causing havoc and having consequences in there as well. But thank God, I finished with 11 years, honorable discharge 3 times. So I got out in 1991. So 1992 became my first treatment center, a 28-day program. I got out the program. I was walking around like, I'm good now. These people told me to don't get too hungry, angry, lonely, tired. That's not the solution for my alcoholism, right? So 2 days later, I was back on it again. No relief because I didn't have a solution. But anyway, that's enough about what we were like. I had a long history of drinking, right? And it just had total control of my mind. But thank God. What happened? Well, here's what happened. After I rejected AA for so many years, I was going to meetings time and time again. Remember, I got introduced in 1983, right? And I struggled from alcoholism from 83 to 2019, July. Yeah, July 2019. That was like my 15th or 16th trip to a psych ward, a mental ward. These people deem me as crazy, right? You know, I suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder and many other things, and alcohol could never cure that problem. But anyway, when I got out of that program, here's what happened. COVID was about to hit. So I had been struggling. I always tried to sponsor myself, right? But we know how that turned out. Uh-uh. Sponsoring yourself didn't do me no good because I simply drank again. But anyway, there was some man who approached me, right? Well, he's been my sponsor ever since. Right at the beginning of the pandemic, I found this group here called the Keystone Group, first of all. And thank God for the Keystone Group. It showed me the problem, the solution, and the course of action required of me to solve my alcohol problem. So this man approached me. He brought out the facts about alcoholism. First, he showed me something here in the big book. My story is always included with points from the big book, and I pray that simply whatever I share, it can help somebody no matter how long. If you're on day one, or you've been out coming back, or maybe you've been in recovery for a long time. The benefit is to carry this message from the book. See, the reason I couldn't get sober from 83 to 2020, right? January, February 2020 is my sobriety day. I couldn't get sober just going to meetings. I'd go 3-4 meetings a day and leave the meeting and come out and drink, right? Because they taught me a watered down message. They said, Kim, meeting makers make it. Well, why can't I make it? I'm going to all these meetings every day, every week, and I'm still drinking. Then one guy told me, well, if you don't pick it up, you can't get drunk, right? What is that to tell somebody like me? Very first thing I did is let me out your car. Drop me off at the liquor store. I will walk back. So that's what I did. He offered me no solution. But the man who came to me, matter of fact, I recovered from alcoholism on Zoom in February 2020. My sponsor, he showed me something. He 12-stepped me through this thing. And it's here through AA and not my religion, right? My religion has solved my alcohol problem. I used to be I'm a minister, right? Used to be a minister and faithful, preaching. And you know what I did every day after preaching? I'm drinking. So religion has solved my alcohol problem. I didn't have a connection. So this program will teach us how to get this connection. So, but it's one thing I love to share, right? And it starts on the preface on page XI. It says, because this book has become the basic text of our society and has helped such large numbers of alcoholic men and women to recovery, there exists strong sentiment against any radical changes being made in it, right? Therefore, the first portion of this volume, right here, this volume, describing the AA recovery program. So this is where the AA recovery program is founded, in this book. Like I said, the meetings, that was a joke. I mean, I love to do meetings, of course. I'm doing one now. I do it every day. But this meetings alone has solved my alcohol problem. But this book, remember I talked at the beginning on the title page, it's going to present us a story. And then it's going to give us a recipe for recovery. So this is where the AA program of recovery is found in, right in this book. Some people used to say, matter of fact, when I was in that fellowship, all them watered down fellowships, they'll tell me, well, Kim, you just need to read the first 164 pages 3 times, then you come back and talk to me. Okay, if I start at page 1, I think Bill's story starts on page 1, right? So I'm missing the major points of the book, the program. Yeah, if I don't study this first part, then I'm screwed. So I tried that page 164. No, you know what I did after I read it 2 times? I went and got a drink. So I said, I'll read it the 3rd time when I'm drinking. I'll never call this so-called sponsors back, right? So forward to the first edition. Page XIII. We of Alcoholics Anonymous are more than 100 men and women who have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body to show other alcoholics precisely how we have recovered is the main purpose of this book. Listen to that, to show others precisely how we have recovered. So by the time my sponsor showed me this, I said, well, maybe I can recover too. Because when he approached me, he was praying that he could find somebody to take through the steps, right? Because he was kind of slacking on some things, and he needed to take somebody through the process. At the same time, I'm praying for a sponsor because the years I tried to sponsor myself, I just drank. And but I thank God today for the people that helped me through this process. The big in this Keystone group, they helped me as well. But anyway, he approached me. He showed me something in the doctor's opinion. This is where I found out I suffer from an allergy of the body. I'm gonna start with the allergy first, because this is what happened to me. If I hadn't known this information, I would have never knew that I was a darn alcoholic, right? So the great Dr. Silkworth, Dr. Silkworth had several encounters with Bill Wilson in and out of Towns Hospital several times. So Bill Wilson learned the grave nature of alcoholism from this doctor. This very Dr. Silkworth, we call as a medical saint for the alcoholic community, right? He worked with over 40,000 of us alcoholics and addicts. He worked at the hospital. He was the chief of that hospital, and his treatments was for drug and alcohol addiction. That's what he specialized in this stuff. So then I go to share a little bit on his subject, and it's on page XXVI in the big book. So the doctor says, in this statement, he confirms what we who have suffered alcoholic torture must believe, that the body of the alcoholic is quite as abnormal as his mind. The body of the alcoholic is quite as abnormal as his mind. So true. It did not satisfy us to be told that we could not control our drinking just because we were maladjusted to life, that we were in full flight from reality, or were outright mental defectives. Yeah, people always thought I was a darn mental defective. I was a crazy fool, man. I was a nice guy, right? But you let me get a drink behind my belt, I'm gonna turn into the real Mr. Hyde. Nice as I was, man. I smile all the time until when you see me not smiling, if you knew me in the street, when you see me not smiling, that means you better get the heck away from me, because something is coming out. You're not gonna like it, right? But then back to the book, it says, these things were true to some extent. In fact, to a considerable extent with some of us. But we are sure that our bodies were sickened as well. So in our belief, any picture of the alcoholic which leaves out this physical factor is incomplete. I was suffering from a physical factor, because y'all know something. All the years of my drinking career, every time I took a drink, I could not stop. My body was demanding for more. This is known as the allergy of my body. I found that I had this allergy way back, right? I never could get enough to drink, because the more I drank, the thirstier I got, and the more my body demanded. That's telling me I have a problem inside of my body. No wonder I kept drinking so much over all them years. So when I got to be about 16, I was out drinking the big time alcoholics in this town I grew up in. How could I drink them all before I was 17 years old? And these guys I had been seeing since I was a baby. Some of them used to take 30 minutes to walk a half a block to try to make it home, half a step at a time. And I'm out drinking these guys. These was the big time drunks in the town. Here I am, a teenager, right? This allergy was in me at 17 years old, but I had no idea why I was drinking so much. No, wow, oh man. I went through so many dark times. Like I said, I don't want to talk about, because I could never talk about it within an hour. No, I drank for 42 darn years. So But y'all can probably imagine the crap the food like me done went through. I shared a little bit with y'all. See, check this out. The next page, XXVIII. This taught me a lot of more things. It says, we believe, and so suggested a few years ago, that the action of alcohol on these chronic alcoholics is a manifestation of an allergy, that the phenomenon of craving is limited to this class and never occurs in the average temperate drinker. These allergic types can never safely use alcohol in any form at all. Phenomenon of craving. It just took one drink, it'll set off this phenomenon of craving. That's a key point. Oh, wow. That is something serious. That's what I was doing. I was craving after this stuff after I had one. You know, I used to hear in the memes, one of this is never enough. One is too many, and 1,000 is never enough. I ain't know what them fools was talking about. But this book tells me I develop a phenomenon of craving when I take that first drink. I can never safely use any amount of alcohol in any form at all. Wow. Bottom of that same page, right? Men and women drink essentially because they like the effect produced by alcohol. Yeah, I love the effect the alcohol gave me when I was 14. Yeah, my uncles used to drink. They come around and smoke these cigars, these big old cigarettes, driving Cadillacs, Lincoln Continental, pockets full of money, and they always drinking this stuff in the can, right? They love Millers and Schlitz, High Life, and there's some kind of whiskey they used to drink. So 14 years old, I said, I'm gonna try some of this. Y'all give me one of them things up. Shoot, now I took that first beer that night behind the house at a barbecue. We used to have big functions at my mom's house where we lived. They come from Detroit, California, around the world. We all meet up there at least once a year, right? So I love the way that stuff made me feel that first time. I said, I knew then I was gonna try it again. Yeah, matter of fact, I had two tonight. But I wanted some more, right? But here I am, 14. I better go ahead and go to bed. Try not to let mama smell the stuff on my darn breath. So I went in my room and I locked the door. I was craving liquor the rest of the night, right? And this was only from beer. I got the electric effect though when I tried that alcohol for the first time. But then the book says the sensation is so elusive that while they admit it is injurious, they cannot, after a time, differentiate the true from the false. To them, their alcoholic life seems to be the only normal one. Yeah, I shared a few minutes ago. That's the way it was with me. I simply couldn't take it, and I couldn't leave it alone. I had to have alcohol in all forms. It had to come first in my life before anything and anyone else. I had to have alcohol at all costs. I thought that was my normal way of life. I'll just be like this to the day I die. And then I blame other people. I say, hey, don't worry about me. I can handle my liquor. No, I couldn't. That stuff, it was kicking my butt the whole time. I'm steady pointing down my throat. Here, another point. They are restless, irritable, and discontented unless they can again experience the sense of ease and comfort which comes at once by taking a few drinks. Yeah, we get that sense of ease and comfort when we're in our active drinking days, right? But the beautiful part about it today, I get my ease of sense and comfort today by relying on a power greater than myself. The program of Alcoholics Anonymous, it led me to solve my alcoholic problem, right? And I'll get more into that as what we are like now when I get to that part. So it goes. After they are succumbed to the desire again, this is the brain telling us, you need to drink. You need another drink. You'll be okay. You can handle it this time, right? I just tell myself the same thing. Well, Kim, one ain't gonna hurt you, man. Go on and get that one. Shoot, then you'll be okay. You can go on about your day. No, I never could. So my brain tell me to take that drink. It's the malady of mine, right? So I take that drink. And then the phenomenon of craving develops, and we pass through the well-known stages of a spree, emerging with a firm resolution not to drink again, right? I made many firm resolutions in my drinking career. Shoot, I could tell God did. God, I ain't gonna drink again. I'm throwing up in the toilet. I got a whiskey bottle in my hand. When I raise up from throwing up, I pour another one down and throw up again. Just keep on throwing up till my God help me. Let me get through this. My stomach turning around. Shoot, only when I tried to sober up the next day, I'm right back in the same spot, drunk again. And this is repeated over and over. And unless this person can experience an entire psychic change, there is very little hope of his recovery. Very little hope. It talks about a psychic change right here, right? Spiritual experience, better known as spiritual awakening. Yeah. So that's what it's going to take for me to solve this problem. So as we kept going on, it says, on the other hand, as strange as this may seem, those who do not understand, once a psychic change has occurred, the very same person who seemed doomed, who has so many problems, he despaired of ever solving them, suddenly finds himself easily able to control his desire for alcohol, the only effort necessary being that required to follow a few simple rules. Okay, now, what are the few simple rules? Well, it's the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. You know, I done did NA, I done did AA, right? I done did Smart Recovery. I done tried to 12-step myself. I done tried to do all different kinds of means of ways of recovering. I never could get it until I was 12-step through this program, and it produced a miracle within me. So then one more thing about this allergy, right? It's found on the doctor's opinion, page XXX. It says, all these and many others, they talking about me, the real alcoholic, have but one symptom in common. They cannot start drinking without developing the phenomenon of craving. This phenomenon. Well, what is a phenomenon? It's an unexplainable event, right? Yeah, I could never understand it. Why was I drinking so much? This is why I developed this craving. And it may be the manifestation of an allergy which differentiates these people. We're talking about the alcoholic. See, a moderate drinker can take it or leave it alone. A heavy drinker can drink heavy and then he can get up and move around like the next day and nothing happens. He can even stop or moderate. If a life situation occurred, or if the doctor tells him, he can do that. But the real alcoholic, without the solution, we can't stop for nothing. I tried. It's 42 years of trying, and it didn't work for me. I've been a real alcoholic my whole darn life, right? And it says, it differentiates us from everybody else, and it sets us apart as a distinct entity. It has never been by any treatment with which we are familiar, permanently eradicated. The only relief we have to suggest is entire abstinence. No doubt about it. That's the only thing we have. But you know what it took for me? I had to be put in the hospital for the last time, July 2019, July the 16th, 2019, right? But I ain't started my sobriety date to February 3rd, 2020. That's when I realized I no longer had a desire to drink alcohol again. So on with the 12 steps. My sponsor took me through Bill's story. I could identify with Bill Wilson. Though I wasn't no stockbroker, I ain't lived in New York. But I was in the military. I traveled the world around. I could relate with all Bill's experiences. He was a war veteran. I was a war veteran, decorated with honor, had all the similarities as Bill. So when it comes to alcoholism, we look at similarities rather than differences. I did a lot of the same things Bill did. I'm sure a lot of people here in the meeting today, that we've all done similar things as the result of our alcoholism. But you know what? I couldn't stop on my own for nothing in the world. I was the relapse king. I used to get white chips every other day at one point. Because I couldn't, they talking about 24 hours a day, but without a solution, I couldn't make it 2 hours. As a matter of fact, I couldn't make it 20 minutes. No, they dropped me off on the bus back to my house. I'm gonna be drinking as soon as I get off that bus, as soon as I get to that store over there across the street, right? And have a solution. And when we don't have a solution, we simply drink. Even I've tried sometimes in the past. I tried to do what step 1, 2, and 3 is basically information step. When we get to 3, we'll make a decision, right? But going through Bill's story, Bill, on page 5, this is how it was with me as well. At the top of page 5, it says, liquor ceased to be a luxury. It became a necessity. Bathtub gin, 2 bottles a day, and often 3, got to be routine. Like I said, this stuff became a necessity for me for many years. When it comes to talking about bottles, I don't usually like to share this part, but I was drinking a half a gallon a day for about 10 years straight. I was suffering from this allergy that was in my body. But I always thought I could stop when I could, but I never could stop on my own. Thank God. But something happened to Bill Wilson. He kept going in and out the hospital, just like I kept going in and out of the hospital, right? But every time I come out the hospital, or every time I come out the psych ward, I drank again. Matter of fact, the closest psych ward from my house would be an hour away. Birmingham, Alabama. I had to go to Montgomery, Alabama, Tuskegee, or Tuscaloosa. All those places are an hour or so. A lot of times I woke up, here I am in a psych ward. I'm so alcoholed out. But none of that never helped, because then on the way home, I'd be drunk on the way home. Before I got home, I'd be drunk. After coming out the psych ward, sometimes I stayed 10 days, sometimes 14 days. Sometimes they keep me 21 days, only to come out and get drunk. Every time I went to jail, as soon as the door was open, they let me out. I get drunk. I'm going straight to the liquor store. And this kept on going on and on and on. But here, I remember when Ebby Wilson, Ed Thatcher, and Bill Wilson, they were good drinking buddies over the years, right? So they about to lock Ebby up in an insane asylum, right? So some guys from the Oxford group came to the judge, and they got him to release Ebby under their care. So 2 months, not quite 2 months later, Ebby flew down and came to see Bill to bring on the experience that he had got. But see, here's a trick, not a trick, but so on page 9 of the big book, Bill says, the door opened, and he stood there fresh skinned and glowing. There was something about his eyes, right? Something about his eyes. He was inexplicably different. What had happened? Bill here is interested because he asks what had happened. And then he says, I pushed the drink across the table. He refused it. Disappointed, but curious. I wonder what had got into this fellow, he inquired. He wasn't himself. Here, Ebby has had a change. And he came along to bring this experience to Bill. True enough, Ebby drank again, right, for the rest of his life. But he had this change that we talk about that's needed that's required for us to recover from alcoholism. So then he said, okay, bottom of page 9, he says, he had come to pass his experience along to me if I would have it. I was shocked, but interested. Certainly I was interested. I had to be, for I was hopeless. Dr. Sitworth deemed Bill Wilson as hopeless in the hospital there in Towns Hospital. Shoot, I was a hopeless alcoholic too. I used to look, man, I used to want to die. I used to want to kill myself or kill somebody else. I just wanted to end it all a lot of times, right? Because I seen no way out. No, I could look at myself in the mirror and I said, Kim, what is wrong with you, man? Are you crazy? And then I burst out in tears because I couldn't solve my problem. I didn't know it took something greater than me at the time, right? As I was being 12-step through this thing, I seen I need to develop a relationship, which we're going to get to that too here shortly. I needed to develop a relationship with a power that's greater than myself. So here Bill Wilson shares on page 10, I had always believed in a power greater than myself. Yeah, I share with y'all. I grew up in the church listening at this God that I didn't like, this God that I turned against, saying he was going to burn me in hell forever. He was going to kill me. But you know, he was the power greater than me the whole time. Fast forward to today, right? I have a relationship with that same God, the same power. He solved my alcoholic problem. So Bill Wilson says, like I said, on page 10, I had always believed in a power greater than myself. I had often pondered these things, right? So Bill says he had often wondered about these things. He meditated on these things and says he was not an atheist. Few people really are. For that means blind faith in the strange proposition that this universe originated in a cipher and aimlessly rushes nowhere. So we have atheists and alcoholics anonymous, so true. So while the word atheist is on my mind, I'm going to share something on page 181 from Dr. Bob's story. Anybody interested, they can turn to page 181. And it said, and Dr. Bob said, if you think you are an atheist, an agnostic, a skeptic, or have any other form of intellectual pride which keeps you from accepting what is in this book, I feel sorry for you. If you still think you are strong enough to beat the game alone, that is your affair. But if you really and truly want to quit drinking, liquor for good and all, and sincerely feel that you must have some help, we know that we have an answer for you. It never fails. If you go about it with one half the zeal, you are being in the habit of showing when you were getting another drink. Your Heavenly Father will never let you down. Now, when it talks about this power, I'm going to fast forward to where we get to this power in just a minute. So like I said, we got many atheists, we got many agnostics. I do have some talks on my YouTube channel about the atheists and the agnostic, God and AA. Brother Dan, I have a link in the chat, and you can be able to gain direct access to some of these talks. It's about spiritual growth. I'm going to be honest with you. So, as I went on, here's a point. Page 17, when it says there is a solution. So this is what I was in need of. I was in need of a solution, right? I know we all was in need of the same solution. We as alcoholics, we had the same problem, a common problem. We're alcoholics. We suffer from the allergy. We suffer from the malady of the mind. We also have a common solution. The big book and the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. That is the solution that we have. So we of Alcoholics Anonymous here on page 17 know thousands of men and women who were once just as hopeless as Bill. Nearly all have recovered. They have solved the drink problem. Okay, so what Bill Wilson does and what he's going to do in this very book, he's going to show us a solution. And this solution is simply spiritual. It's not religious. It don't have anything to do with religion. You know, alcoholics, a lot of Alcoholics Anonymous members came from this Oxford group, which was a religious group. That's where Bill Wilson got some ideas from this very group. But he left that group because he couldn't accept all the tenets of that group. But see, God had another plan for Bill Wilson and for all us alcoholics and drug addicts or whatever we may be. And that's a blessing for all of us. So it goes on to talk about the solution. So first, we find out what the problem is. We know the problem now. Now we know the solution. Here's something that might have been holding us back when it talks on page 30 more about alcoholism, right? It goes on to read, most of us have been unwilling to admit we were real alcoholics. No doubt about it. No person likes to think he is bodily and mentally different from his fellows. Therefore, it is not surprising that our drinking careers have been characterized by countless vain attempts to prove we could drink like other people. I tried all this before. I never could drink like other people. Some of my people, my associates, they could drink one or two, maybe three, then they could leave. They could go home, they can go to bed, they can be with their family. Every time I tried, I kept right on drinking after they left, and then I would leave my family and be gone. Alcohol took me away. Alcohol what took me away from my family for many years. My old ideas didn't work, but the ideas expressed in this book, it works. It really does. So the idea, this is very important. This was very important when I being 12 step through this process. It says the idea that somehow, someday, he will control and enjoy his drinking is the great obsession of every abnormal drinker. You see that word, great obsession, right? We always have an idea, well, I can stop. I can go take one, two, or three, and I can stop. I'm just obsessed with this stuff. Yeah, I can stop. Shoot, the lie detector determined and experience determined, man, you know you can't stop before you even start. So this idea was implanted in my brain. Oh, I can shut it off after 5. Oh, I never could succeed. So, but it's great obsession. And it's another idea. Well, let me get to that. And then it says, but you know, I go back to this, the greatest obsession at this point is we're obsessed with ourselves because we think we can control the situation. You know, my greatest obsession, I always thought, oh, I control my drinking. Shoot, I can handle it. You just watch me. Watch me, man. I'm going to take one and I'm going to be able to stop. Shoot, man, throw it out the window. Once one hit, I couldn't stop for nothing in the world. So it says the persistence of disillusion is astonishing. Many pursue it to the gates of insanity or death. See, it talks about an illusion, right? This illusion comes from an idea that we can solve our own problem. No, and then I can reflect back on page 23, then I move on forward. Page 23 is going to talk about something else wonderful. And it says at the middle of page 23, once in a while he may tell the truth. We're talking about the real alcoholic here. And the truth, strange to say, is usually that he has no more idea why he took that first drink than you have. Drinkers have excuses with which they are satisfied part of the time. Yeah, I told you I made excuses and I blamed everybody else for my drinking. I blamed everybody but myself, right? But in their hearts, they really do not know why they do it. No idea. Then it says, once this malady, key word, malady, this malady comes from the obsession of the mind. Once it has a real hold, they are a baffled lot. Remember, the big book talks about alcohol, cunning, baffling, powerful. Well, it's the cunning part right here, right? The baffling part, I mean. We're a baffled lot. There is the obsession that somehow, someday, they will beat the game, but often suspect they are down for the count. Yeah, my drinking career, I always thought I could beat the game. You know, I thought I could always stop myself from drinking on my own. No, sir. It never worked for a real alcoholic of my type. So now, I found out I needed help. So what helped me? Well, it's pretty simple. Step one, I had to do a complete step one. I admitted complete defeat, right? I had to. Bill Wilson had to admit complete defeat. Alcohol beat us into a state of reasonableness, right? A reason I can't beat it. I have to have help. Without help, like I said, how it works without help, it is too much for us. But there is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find him now. So my sponsor took me through step one. That was step one when I admitted complete defeat. I'm simply powerless over this stuff. But what's my problem? Lack of power. That is our dilemma. Power is always a dilemma for a real alcoholic. We don't have the power to stop ourselves once we cross a certain line. There is no doubt about it. But then the big book, people may wonder. Okay, I'll go to step two right quick. And people may wonder. Okay, step two, we came to believe. that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Now, when it mentions this word power, right, it means we need something outside of ourselves to connect to. You know, I don't have no problem with an atheist. I don't have no problem with no agnostic. I definitely don't have no problem with no true believer, right? My goal is to carry this message to anybody that suffers from alcoholism. You do not have to believe what I believe in, and I won't knock you for what you believe in. If it keeps you sober and you're living a life of being happy, joyous, and free, and it comes from the experience with the power that's greater than yourself. It's simply, my power happens to be God, and I'm going to tell you today, I would never apologize for using that word, no matter where I'm at. It's the very source of my life. There's a thing here in page 40, page 44. Give me about 5 minutes. Okay. So by the time we get to page 44, when I'll be in 12 step, it says, in the preceding chapters, you have learned something of alcoholism. Yeah, we got information from the title page all the way to page 43. That was all step one. We got information now. We hope we have made the clear distinction between the alcoholic and the non-alcoholic. Now, if, when you honestly want to, you find you cannot quit entirely, or when drinking, you have little control over the amount you take, you are probably alcoholic. If that be the case, you may be suffering from an illness which only a spiritual experience will conquer. Yes, no doubt. So I was suffering from an illness that only a spiritual experience will conquer. See, on page 45, it says lack of power. That was our dilemma. We had to find a power by which we could live, and it had to be a power greater than ourselves. Note the word on page 45, power greater than ourselves, is written in italics, so that means it's very important. Well, that's exactly what this book is about. Its main object is to enable you to find a power greater than yourself, which will solve your problem. Notice it said it will solve your problem. Not it might solve it, or it's a 20% possibility, or it's an 80% possibility. It simply solves our problem. And it's rooted here on page 567, back in the spiritual experience, right? One of my favorite readings. It talks about the term spiritual experience and spiritual awakening are used many times in this book, which upon careful reading shows that the personality change sufficient to bring about recovery from alcoholism has manifested itself among us in many forms. It talks about a personality change. All our thoughts and attitudes, everything has changed. Our whole way of living, our whole way of thinking, it has changed. I love that part of the book. And in case you're wondering where this power may be found at, well, in page 55, it tells us, the big book tells us exactly where this power is found at. So when it comes to step one, step two, step three, we trust God. 3, we made the decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God, as we understood him, right? However you understand it. Clean house, steps 4 through 9. Yes, clean house. We do a personal inventory. We talk to God and another person about everything that caused the makeup and our flaws. We got a personal inventory. We talk to them about it. And then we go step 6 and 7. If we miss something, or we want to cling on to something that we don't want to let go of, we need to let it go. We got to become willing. Willingness is key. Honesty and open-mindedness. So then when it comes to steps 10, 11, and 12, these are our growth steps. And the growth is rooted here in step 11. And I'll close right after this, so I don't want to keep nobody over the time period. I mean, this is an open meeting, but I don't want to waste use nobody's time too much. I try to keep it to an hour, and I'm pretty close to that now. But anyway, back on page 85. No, is it 85? Yeah. Now I'll go to 87. As we go through the day, we pause. This is step 11, right? When agitated or doubtful and ask for the right thought or action, we constantly remind ourselves we are no longer running the show, humbly saying to ourselves many times each day, thy will be done. So we start trying to develop a relationship with this power. And once by the time we take the steps, we should be done gain a relationship with this power. I was taught to start doing step 11 immediately because it gives me a 24-hour a day solution. Because it talks about on awakening as well. We ask God to consider our plans for the day. We ask him to direct our thinking. I just did as we pause, that's doing today. And then, at night, when we retire at night, we would give a review of our day. So no doubt, if we done if we done harmed anybody in any kind of way, we make amends and we simply move on. And this I share as well on page 84. We have vigorously commenced this way of living as we clean up the past. We have entered the world of the spirit. Our next function is to grow in understanding and effectiveness. Note this. This is not an overnight matter. It should continue for a lifetime. Continue to watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. When these crop up, we ask God at once to remove them. We discuss them with someone immediately and make amends quickly if we have harmed anyone. Then we can resolutely turn our thoughts to someone we can help. Step 12, having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, we try to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. So love and tolerance of others is our code. I just want to thank everybody for being here today. I hope somebody got something out of it. I love this program. I love what God, does for all of us. It was inspired by Bill Wilson. This book is the second best book next to my Bible, because I'm an avid Bible reader. I live by it. That's my belief. Whatever your belief, your own perception is, that's cool with me. I'm going to still love you. I'm going to help you any way I can. This message saved my life, people. And I want to share one thing more, and then I'm going to shut my mouth. This is in the spiritual experience, too. Like Columbo say, one more thing. Y'all familiar with Columbo, right? One more thing. What often takes place in a few months could seldom have been accomplished by years of self-discipline. With few exceptions, our members find that they have tapped an unsuspected inner resource, which they presently identify with their own conception of a power greater than themselves. Many of us think this awareness of a power greater than ourselves is the essence of spiritual experience. Our more religious members call it God consciousness. Man, what a beautiful state of mind to be in. I'm not conscious of alcoholism no more. See, the big book says the problem has been removed. The requirement, spiritual experience, solves our alcohol problem. So thanks for letting me share, peeps, and thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. And we will get ready to close. Anybody have any comments or shares, anything afterward? Once Brother Dan closes it out, feel free here, open it up for you. Thank God. God bless y'all.
God bless. Thank you very much, Kemble. Love.